Plato once described a group of people who'd spent their entire lives chained inside a dark cave, facing a cold stone wall, where the only things they ever saw were flickering shadows. Because these shadows were the only reality they had ever known, they believed they were seeing the true forms of things, until one prisoner was dragged up a rough, steep ascent and into the blinding light of the sun. This shift in perspective is the central heart of a billion-dollar industry today, the world of psychic readings.
It is a perfect parallel. In that allegory from the Republic, Plato shows us that the transition from a limited viewpoint to a broader one is not actually comfortable. It is often physically painful and deeply disorienting. When that freed prisoner first looks at the sun, he's blinded. He wants to turn back to the shadows because they are familiar and safe. That is precisely the tension people feel when they walk into a psychic consultation. They are sensing that the shadows of their current life, the patterns they keep repeating, the confusion in their relationships, are not the whole story, but they are also terrified of what a new perspective might reveal.
We see this modern version of the cave play out in pop culture, too, most famously in The Matrix. Neo is the quintessential cave dweller who feels that something is wrong with the world, a splinter in his mind, as Morpheus puts it. When he takes the red pill, his entire reality dissolves. Morpheus tells him, "I'm offering the truth, nothing more." But the truth in the movie isn't a sunny meadow. It is a harsh, machine-dominated wasteland. It makes me wonder if that is why people are so drawn to psychics right now. Statistics from 2024 show the online psychic reading market alone was valued at over $860 million, and it is projected to hit $1.3 billion by 2032. People are actively paying for that red pill moment.
The growth is massive, and you have to ask why. Psychology tells us that humans have a fundamental need for cognitive consistency. We want our beliefs and our reality to match. When they don't, we experience cognitive dissonance, that internal friction. A psychic reading functions as an outside lens that can break that friction. It either validates the intuition you have been suppressing, essentially telling you, yes, you are right to trust yourself, or it challenges the narrative you have built, effectively dragging you out of the cave toward a truth you have been avoiding. Whether it's validation or a challenge, it expands the awareness of the whole picture.
But isn't there a danger in seeking that external validation? In the cave, the prisoners played a game where they gave honors to whoever was best at identifying the shadows. Plato was basically saying they were experts in an illusion. If someone goes to a psychic just to hear what they want to hear, aren't they just asking for a more elaborate shadow on the wall? We call this confirmation bias in psychology, where we selectively remember the hits and ignore the misses in a reading.
That is the delicate balance. If you are only looking for a reflection of your own desires, you are still in the cave. You have just moved to a different part of it. However, the most transformative readings, the ones that mirror the freed prisoner's journey, are the ones that introduce information or perspectives that the client couldn't see because of their own emotional blind spots. Research indicates that during periods of extreme stress or major life transitions, our perspective naturally narrows. We get tunnel vision. A psychic reading, in a way, is a tool for perspective taking. It forces a person to step outside their own narrative and consider their life from an eagle-eye view.
I think about that moment when Neo is first unplugged. He is nauseated, he can't see, and he's terrified. Morpheus says, "Your eyes hurt because you've never used them." For a lot of people, their intuitive eyes have been dormant. They have been taught to trust only logic, or what society tells them is real. Then they sit down with a reader who mentions something specific, maybe a detail about a deceased relative or a career path they secretly dreamed of, and it acts like a shock to the system. It wakes up a part of their awareness that has been shut down.
And that shock is where the growth happens. Neuroscience research suggests that Engaging with unfamiliar ideas or new truths can actually foster cognitive flexibility and resilience. When a reader offers a perspective that contradicts your current worldview, it creates a choice. You can be like the prisoners who, as Plato said, would rather kill the messenger than have their reality disturbed, or you can be the one who adjusts their eyes to the light. It's about moving from ignorance, literally not knowing, to a state of informed awareness. Even if the reading doesn't predict a perfect future, it gives the client a map of the territory they didn't know existed.
It is interesting that even with all our modern technology, we are still seeking the same thing as the ancient Greeks who traveled to the oracle at Delphi. We want a bridge between the mortal world of our daily grind and a divine or expanded perspective. Today, we just do it via live video chat or mobile apps. About 40% of consumers in recent surveys even say they turn to these services for mental wellness assistance because they feel the traditional medical model sometimes misses the soul or the bigger picture of their experience.
Traditional therapy is wonderful for processing the past and changing behavior, but psychic readings often address the what if and the why now from a place of perceived destiny or archetypal meaning. It is less about clinical diagnosis and more about narrative reframing. If you view your current job loss not as a failure, but as the necessary collapse for a new chapter to begin, you have changed your perspective entirely. You haven't changed the facts, but you have changed the reality you inhabit. That is the essence of leaving the cave.
There is a beautiful irony in the fact that the word psychic comes from the Greek word psyche, meaning soul. So a psychic reading is etymologically a soul reading. Whether you are Neo looking for the source of the code or a prisoner looking at the sun, the goal is to see what is most real. It suggests that we all have a sense that there is more to the story than what we are currently perceiving.
We often ignore that gut feeling, that splinter, because staying in the cave is easier. But once you have seen a glimpse of the sun, you can't really go back to just being satisfied with the shadows. That expanded awareness changes your decision-making, your relationships, and how you see yourself. It's a journey toward what Socrates called the good, a state where you are no longer just reacting to shadows, but understanding the light that creates them.
It makes me think about the listeners who might be feeling that splinter right now. Maybe they're stuck in a routine that feels like a simulation, or they're looking at a wall of problems that feel like insurmountable shadows. The idea that a single shift in perspective could change everything is both terrifying and incredibly hopeful.
It is an invitation to be curious about your own blind spots. If you could step out of your own life for just 30 minutes and look at it through the eyes of someone who isn't attached to your fears or your history, what would they see? That is the value of seeking a new perspective, whether it's through philosophy, film, or reading. It's about having the courage to ask, is what I am seeing the whole truth or just a shadow?
We're going to dive much deeper into the mechanics of how this works, from the history of the oracle at Delphi to the modern algorithms of psychic apps in our upcoming full episode. We will explore how validation and challenge serve as the two engines of personal transformation, and why the human spirit is so determined to find its way out of the cave, no matter how bright the sun might be.
It is a journey worth taking. Every time we challenge our own perceptions, we become a little more like that freed prisoner. Perhaps a bit dazzled at first, but eventually able to see the world in all its complexity and color. We should all ask ourselves what shadows we are still mistaking for reality and what it would take to finally turn our heads toward the light.
If this conversation made you think about the perspectives you might be missing in your own life, share this episode with someone who is currently searching for their own version of the truth.